Hey everybody, Chris with Legendary Customs based out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Please hit the like button as you are watching this if you're enjoying what you're seeing. We are doing our 4th Legendary Live Edge bed. This one is actually going out to California. It is a beautiful ash bookend bed. It's just an amazing, it's more of a grand piece of furniture than a truck bed. This one is pretty elegant. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, I have spent the last 3 hours leveling this table because it's really important that you're level, because if you're not level, liquid flows downhill and you want this to flow out level. So I've had my 6-foot level out here, I had a 4-foot level going, but if you take and look at this, we're level left to right. Now if we come back over here, and if you try to do this with one level, you're not going to be able to do it. And the longer the level, the better. But that's right on the money. And we did have the long level on there. Come back over to this other corner. It's hard to see at an angle, but that one's right on the money. And then that's right on the money. So after leveling your table, that's probably one of the most important things. Now if you revert to our other videos, you'll see where we taped the backside before we start pouring. Again, that was about an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of taping. Instead of boring you with all of that, you could just go back to my previous videos. But we use a Tyvek tape to do that. And it is not fun. We always put one layer down one direction, another layer down the other direction to make sure it's sealed up. And on some of these big voids, I actually went diagonal also. Because if you get a leak and water epoxy, if you have a leak, it will find it. And as you're pouring, it will slowly go away and you'll get cured with a low spot. So you want to make sure everything is really, really taped up good. Now we're using a brand new product to us called Echopoxy. The reason why we're doing this is because this bed is a full 1.5 inches thick. The last 2 beds that we did were 1 inch thick. So this is a 1/2 inch thicker. This literally will take 3 days to cure. It cures slower. The reason why we're doing that, the slower it cures, the less heat it generates. And with this thick pour, we're able to do a full 1.5 inches as one pour with this product. This product also, when you're buying something for a truck, you want to make sure it's UV resistant. So this is clear. Now we're going to be adding, as you'll find out, a white pearl to it, because this truck's going to be white pearl with a little bit of gold. If this were clear, it would turn yellow. That's why you want the UV protectant. So this is totally 100% good to be out in the sunlight. But then we're going to top it off just to make sure with a UV Epoxy Kit. It's by the same company. You have to scuff it in between, but this is specific for outdoor uses and ultraviolet protection. Just like on a car, you just need millimeters, micrometers of this finish to block the ultraviolet light. That's what we're putting on. So anyway, Kathy and I, say hi Kathy.
Hello Kathy.
Have been busting our tails to get to where we are. And now we're going to start mixing things up. We're going to put all of part A, part B is your hardener, part A into the bucket. For this pour, we need a total of 4 gallons, which is crazy. We're going to use these 2 full part A's, 4 cups, up to the 24 ounces of part A out of this one, and then 2 out of this, because it's a 2-to-1 mix. So 4 of part A, 2 of part B, all of this mixed together will give us just a little bit over 4 gallons. And mathematically, we need 3.86 gallons. How did I figure that out? If you go to their website, right on their website, they have a volume calculator for you. So you put in the width, you put in the height or the length, and then you put in the depth, and it will tell you how much you need.
Of your voids?
Of your voids. Now, these voids are different sizes and different shapes. So obviously, you use the averages. Now I'm going 3.86 gallons. I'm mixing up 4. I'd rather throw some of this away than have to mix up a little bit to fill areas. So we're going to be sacrificing a little bit of this to go into the garbage can, possibly. The stuff is expensive. Right here is a lot of money. When you go to their website and check it out, you'll see that. But I have been told by a gentleman here in town, JR, that made this for us. This is the product that he uses. I have been told that it is an excellent product for deep pours and for shallow pours. So we're going to try it out for the first time, but he has used it several times. So keep watching. The next step, we're on our about 10th step, but the next step is going to be mixing this up. We're going to start that right around the corner. Keep watching. Now, we've actually went through several different samples back and forth between the person who's going to own this, Hank, and myself. And this is what we decided on for a color. So it's a pearl white with pearl gold in it. So Screamin' White from your chem, along with a flash of gold pearl. So between those, it's a lot of white, just a little bit of the gold. And the gold, when you look at it, it's almost a white also. Pearls and white come in gold, blue, red, but they're a base of a white. So that's what we're going to use. All straight gold is too much for the paint that he's going to be putting on his car. So it's a lot of white with just a tad of gold. And that is what we have to pay attention to. The next step. The biggest thing with epoxy is controlling the heat. So we set up a fan. We'll turn that on and have that running after we have completed the pour. And that will keep the table cool. It'll keep the epoxy cool, and it will help dissipate any heat. We have, when we start putting in part B, we mix it for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to tell you something. When you mix it, we're going to use a mechanical mixer. When you're mixing, you can take and scrape the sides of the walls when you're mixing. And that's what you want to try to do, to try to get all that into here. But when you're pouring it out, if you don't scrape that off of the wall and get that into the mix, do not scrape your bucket in any way, because you will get something in your table, or in this case, the legendary live edge bed, that won't be properly mixed to the right ratios, and you'll get a spot that won't be hardened up all the way. So anyway, food for thought, scrape it as you're mixing. And if you do that, you can lightly scrape it out, but literally many times scrape the side of the walls. I can't stress that enough. So
we missed a step.
What did I miss?
I don't know. What is in your bucket?
So this is, I poured in all of the part A, which is the resin. I'm doing white, so I'm using an orange bucket. Don't use a white bucket to see how good the white is covered. You won't see it. When I'm using a color, I use a white bucket so I can see the color of the red or the blue or the orange, like what we've done in the past. So this is the pearl. Clean.
You always need it.
Very, very slow, because you don't want to have a lot of bubbles. And I'm going to probably end up using this entire thing, but you want to put it in slow. The faster you put it in, you're going to get chunks. Good. That's not what I want. Now we're going to let this sit before we put the part B in there, so we can get some of the air bubbles out that I just put in. Remember, you're looking through a whole, in this case, 20 inches of pearl. So when you have this 1 inch thick, or 1.5 inches, it's not going to be the same consistency as what we have here.
You're also adding more to it.
Oh yeah. In this case, we want to have it so you don't see the bottom of the bucket. And when we did the original sample, it was almost 2 of these, when we measured it out, to 1/4 of the gold. So I'm keeping track of how much we're putting in. We're getting a really, really nice color. First one that we've done in white, and I was pleasantly surprised by the coverage we got. It's not like a paint, obviously. Does have nice coverage. Okay. So consistency, we're really good. Compared the transparency to what we had. Now he's going to put a light underneath it, LED lights, and you can see, you can't really see through it, but light will still come through it. So just like the legendary Mystics bed, it's going to put light underneath there, so it really pops at night. So consistency, we got good colors, we got a lot of air in there, so we have to let that sit and that air will disperse out. Probably going to let that sit for a good 40 minutes before we add the Part B hardener. So as much air as can come out of there as possible, and then we're going to mix it by hand.
When are you putting the gold in?
And we're going to be putting the gold in. Well, we'll put the gold in now.
That's what I thought.
Yep. So, all right. Looking excellent.
Should I try to do both?
Okay, so Kathy has the gold, and it's going to take 3 heavy spoonfuls of that mixed in. And then we'll have the correct ratio. But you get what we're doing. Then you can see all those bubbles just being released. That'll sit for 45 minutes. They'll come up to the top, and we'll start over. All right, a lot of mixing. We got the color correct. We poured it into here, same depth as the other, and it's the correct color. But because of a lot of mixing, I put a lot of air into this. So instead of waiting 45 minutes to let this air come up and out, because it's not the big air bubbles, it's tiny, tiny air bubbles, we're gonna let it sit overnight, let the air come out, and then we'll start over, and tomorrow we're gonna mix by hand. Now, pay attention to what I'm gonna say. If you put the hardener in it, You don't have the luxury of waiting overnight for these air bubbles to come out. We do. There's no hardener. If you put the hardener in it, you got the regular pour time. You can let it sit for 40-45 minutes and then you start your pour. That's why we didn't put the hardener in to get the color that we wanted first, because just what we've learned from the past 3 beds is it takes a while to get the color right, and the more you mix, the more air goes in, the worse off you are. So you want all those air bubbles to come out.
See very well. You can sort of see it. Looks better with the light on it.
Yeah, yeah, looks a lot better here. I'll shake my phone. All those little air bubbles is making it look really cloudy. So tomorrow, this will be more of a consistent versus what it is. So, looking great.
180 hours later.
You're so funny. As you can see, all of the bubbles are out, which is awesome. The color, you can see its true color because no bubbles in it. Before it was a foamy white. There were so many small bubbles in there. But it's literally been, well, she's probably about 20 hours since we did this. I started stirring this morning, and believe it or not, on the bottom of the bucket, the pearl actually had settled down in that amount of time, which is very unusual because in paint, usually it stays in the material quite a bit longer.
Well, this isn't paint.
So I already stirred it up this morning once, and doing it by hand like this, you don't get the air bubbles in it. But what I was saying is, scrape the sides when you're mixing. So, this is part A. We need 1 complete part B and then 2 cups. Part B. Okay, we're putting in part B, which is the hardener. And you put it in real slow, mix it in as you're going.
It's going to be a heavy bucket.
It's going to be a heavy bucket. This is adding clear material, so the pearl is going to be diluted, but with everything that's in there, I'm not even worried about it. We're going to be putting small air bubbles in it again, not as many. So after we have this mixed, we have to let it sit half hour, then we can go right back at it and start our pour. You don't necessarily need to wait that half hour, but it's good to wait it out because the less bubbles out of the material for the pour, the less bubbles you have to worry about showing up in your live edge bed. Okay, now on the directions, it says mix for 5 minutes. I always mix longer because it can never be too mixed. It can be undermixed. 2 of these.
Did you just put it in your hair?
No, I didn't want to.
Oh. I think getting hardener in your hair wouldn't be the best scenario.
You know what's really weird is this stuff says clean up with warm water. I read the directions last night again because this is a new product, and they do say pours that are really big, even though you can do it in 1.5 inches at a time. If you use more than 20 liters, recommend that you do half instead of an inch, do a ½ inch at a time. But that's one big area. So if one big area takes up that amount, then you want to do the multiple pours. The reason that is because this generates heat as it cures. Now we're doing 5 or 6 small pockets of material. So even though this is almost 5 gallons of liquid, the long and the short is, it's not going to be in one big pour. It's going to be several pockets, so it's not going to generate that much heat. Anyway, I'm going to keep mixing this for the next 5, 6, 7 minutes. Then I'll let it settle. Take and do it again. We want to make sure it's really, really mixed up. And then Kathy's going to run and get a couple things. And we're going to come back and you will watch the pour start. And I'm really excited about this because this is cool. I was really worried what white pearl would look like because you don't want it, I didn't want it to be something we could really see through. And that's not what it's going to be at all. So very happy with what it's looking like. This is going to be an awesome bed. It has been a long little morning. Blew everything off because it sat overnight. And now, because it's been 24 hours, I'm checking the level. So we're level this way. We'll level this way. Beautiful. So nothing moved overnight. And all the work we've been doing, we didn't bump anything. So that's awesome. If this is off a little bit, water goes level. If this is just one bubble on the other side touching in that small area, you'll notice it. All right, so now we have been mixing the epoxy literally.
You gonna bring the table over? No? Make it easier for you.
I could. So we've been mixing the epoxy. I mixed it with a timer for 5 minutes. Just mixing.
By hand
By hand.
today.
Another timer for 5 minutes, and I did nothing but scrape the sides of the bucket for 5 minutes end to bottom. And then another time there for 5 minutes. So I've been mixing 15 minutes. And then we had this set next to the fan touching this, and the vibration actually helped the air bubbles come up to the top from my hand mixing. So we should be golden. Now, clean and clean, and we're ready. This has been months, and I'm not kidding, months of preparation to get where we are. Having the slab built, picking out the wood, drying it, everything that goes into it, getting colors. Approved by the customer.
Well,
Everything.
it's not like they're in town.
Yeah, this is going to California. So, here we go. Let's see, I'm gonna start down here. Have a fan ready to go in case things start to get too warm. You wanna get that heat
This is
going.
way cooler than our other stuff.
Yeah. This is flowing out beautifully. This is going to be gorgeous. Oh man, that's cool.
What do you think I was doing, buddy?
is so awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We're gonna fill these little guys on top too, aren't we?
Yep.
Or is that not deep enough and that's just gonna get
Very clear.
shaved off?
And pour slow. You don't want to create air bubbles. Although they'll come out really easy. Boy, that's awesome. We're just starting and I'm just like, wow. This is our 4th live edge bed. Now I've seen a couple other ones out on the internet after we did our first one, and I think that's awesome. It's amazing how this little pocket took almost as much as this one.
It's wider on the underside.
Yep. I'll put more in. That is so cool. That's gonna be awesome. We'll drag it around a little bit. Woo! With a stick. This one will do.
I think you gotta do these too.
I might.
You will. Oh, did you see the bubble?
Yeah.
That one's
just
gonna
needs-
go down in.
Yep. Hopefully not continuously, because if we did a good job taping, it won't.
Well, unless it's completely inside the log.
Yeah, well, but it has to go out somewhere. Jeff and I taped it, and then Jeff and I checked it yesterday, so. That is pretty. It's gonna be awesome. It's all worth it right here. Okay, as you can see, we had everything poured, and we're trying to stay ahead. Of the cure. Trying to keep designs in it. And you just pull it around and make the designs that you want. The one thing about this epoxy, and any epoxy, to a degree, has a mind of its own. You can only do as much as you can do, and then it stops listening. But it's coming out great. This is beautiful. And if you're not all the way filled, we're going to be putting a clear coat over the top of this whole thing. And then this area I filled too much, so I just took a spoon and spooned out the extra. Now that I did that, I can pull in. Hank was wondering what this was going to look like because it's a light colored wood. Right there is a beautiful example of what it's going to look like finished. That green's just going to pop. And this makes those bubbles pop. But for the most part, we don't have any bubbles because of the time we took up front to let them settle out and do what they were going to do. It's late at night. My wife and I just got done with going out to dinner. We thought we'd check in on this. It's just starting to gel up. We started mixing this at 2 o'clock. It's 9 something, 10 something. It's 10:30. So 2 o'clock to 10:30, just starting to gel up. Hopefully it'll hold these patterns because that's kind of what we want. It's looking awesome. I am fighting this thing all the way, trying to keep a specific design in the epoxy, and boy, it's fighting. I need it to set up so it will hold, but it's been quite a few hours. It's, again, late at night. Trying to do what we can. Here's a look. So this is what we have. Trying to make it hold. Kind of some cool designs. Just some swirls. What happens is this is generating heat, and that heat as it rises turns this into like pillows. And we're trying to avoid that. It's starting to gel up just a little bit. It's been over 10 hours since we originally mixed this together. Crap, it's almost 12 hours. Anyway, doing our best. We'll keep fighting. All right, super late. The top of the epoxy is now turned into like a jello. So there is no more manipulating it whatsoever. So from whatever happens from now, which looks pretty damn nice, to tomorrow morning, well, later this morning, it's all in the hands of God. The epoxy will do what it wants. I can't do any more with it. Keeping my fingers crossed. Right now it looks beautiful. Now, we did some things that you're not necessarily going to see because you've seen us sand here plenty. But if you look at the live edge bed, it was a mess with over pour and everything else, and everything was shiny because that's what this is. It's a clear, high gloss epoxy. So we had to sand the entire bed. We had to look it over. We had to clean it up. And then we had to prep it for the top pour. So this isn't thick at all. Again, we're using the Echopoxy. This specifically has the UV inhibitor in it because this bed is going to be outside. If you don't use an epoxy that is built to be outside, it will yellow, it will discolor, it will do things you don't want it to do. This product will not. Anyway, sanded everything, cleaned everything up, tack cloth everything because this is the final process. The next 2 final process, there'll be one more top coat. We're going to do 2. But because this is a finished process, you want as much dust and debris out of it as possible. Look over the entire thing for pencil marks, or what I found out is I was chasing this morning from the level, because you still want to make sure it's level in all directions because liquid flows downhill. This is still perfectly fine, nothing is moved. But I put tape on here because the aluminum was leaving marks, and then I had to sand those marks to get rid of them. But literally check out everything 2-3 times, because what is there now is there forever. So if you have a pencil 73 5/8, something written somewhere, and you clear coat it, it's there forever. Now, I'm being a little simplified here because I've seen mistakes like that happen. So anyway, make sure everything's cleared up. I got a nice little tool from JR. This helps us spread, and we're going to be using the 1/8. So when you're pushing it, it will leave behind the product to do this. Now, I went to their website for the calculator again. Their calculator on this was way off. I mean, way off. We had like an extra gallon of product that we burned up in other things. We have nice coasters. we just had to use this shit up because it's too expensive just to let go. Anyway, so I'm using a full gallon on this because it's the first time I've used this product. I cannot see this taking a gallon. So hopefully we're not going to end up with a lot of stuff wasted again. But I'm taking their advice. First time might have been my error because these did have a lot of pockets underneath that I added a little bit for, but I only added 10%. And out of 5 gallons, I could see part of a gallon wasted, but not a full gallon, gallon and a half that I mean, got a nice stepping stone wafer. I mean, right there, that's over a gallon. So we're gonna find out if this time it's way off. We're gonna have to just figure things the other way. Long and short, we're ready. Yesterday I spent 2 hours at the end of the day getting all of the dust out of the shop. I opened up the garage doors, I turned fans on, blowing everything out, and I literally took a leaf blower and I blowed everything off, everything out the doors, and it has been settling for more than 12 hours. And then again, I blew off this today. There was very, very little, if anything, on here. So get your area as dust-free as possible. Again, because this is your final product. Everything that's in this is there forever. So, we're gonna mix everything up. I have half of the product poured, part A. Okay, part A is already in there. Now this one we're going to do a little different. We're not mixing up a lot. And we're not going to put in a lot of pearl. So I'm going to put both part A and part B in here. And we're going to mix them up with the pearl in them. Okay, so even though we're going over the top of everything with a clear, I'm just putting a hint of the pearl in here on top of the wood. You're not going to see it like you do in the areas we did the deep pour, but at an angle, when it catches the sun, it will give a real cool cast. So, and that's what we want it to do. We want it just to be a hint of the white pearl. Remember, scrape the sides of the bucket now. If you don't do that now, you can't scrape it when you're dumping it out. Okay, we've been mixing 5 minutes. Directions said mix for 2. The pot life of this is 20 minutes. Cure time, 48 hours. So we have 20 minutes to get this on. We have the brush to go around the edge to smooth out what's going to flow over. Make sure you have a paintbrush to do that. It's thoroughly mixed. We're going to start pouring. start with the spots that need the most first. Okay, I cleaned off the bucket so I can set it down. 1/8 inch. That's what we're using to push it around. Look at that wood. That's beautiful. Hank, you've been waiting a long time for this? With all of the decisions that we had to make of wood species, colors, mail time. Boy, stuff going through the mail in today's world is crazy long. I'm just pulling the excess product to the areas that we're going to need it. Okay, as you can see, it is all poured, and oh my gosh, how beautiful. This thing is awesome. Okay, so their calculator. Yeah, wrong. I had at least a little over 1/4 gallon left. So what we ended up doing is dumping it on top of what we already put down. And then we used, instead of the 1/8 inch spreader, we used the larger teeth, one size up. And it ended up working perfect. So again, I calculated for a 1/16 of an inch. We spread it at an 1/8 of an inch, and it ended up being a 1/4 of an inch. So it was like really, really strong. Now what Kathy is doing is going around getting rid of all of the bubbles that form. Man, this is beautiful. The wood is getting richer and richer, and the grain is really starting to pop. There are some beautiful ribbons in here. Just an awesome, awesome bed. Now the cool thing is, if this stays clear and free of dust, which it should, we'll only have to do one pour on this side, because I wanted to do an 1/8 inch total, or 2 16-inch pours. Right now, again, we spread it at a 1/4 inch with the blades, but it's somewhere between an 1/8 and a 1/4 for actual product. But it's really flat. It's really gorgeous. That 20 minutes of work time that you have flies by, so watch your clock. We had to peel off all of the Tyvek tape on the back side, which was hell on wheels, to say the least. Now we are sanding everything, all the high spots, getting them down. And it's just a lot of dirty work. Been working on it for about an hour, hour and a half already, easily. And we're not even halfway done. And that's with 80 grit sandpaper. When we get everything smooth, then we got to go back behind with 100 and then 200 sandpaper, 250. So we're going in the right direction. A lot of work. This is the back side. It will not be perfect. Like, this is actually almost a 1/4 inch lower than these sides. The back side was not put together perfect because The other side is what we paid attention to, the side that's gonna be up. This side won't be seen except when the bed is tilted. And it's gonna have some character. It's gonna be pretty smooth, but there will be lower spots. Everything on this side does have to get sealed, just like on the other side with the epoxy, to keep the humidity out of it. That will keep it from cupping and rolling and moving with the different temperatures. But anyway, it's coming along great. Very dusty process. Respirator is needed for this part of it. And I'm gonna get back to sanding, get this thing done tonight, hopefully. So tomorrow night, Kathy, flip it around. And I can pour this.
Hopefully that was in my nostrils.
Yeah. And then come in on the next day, flip it over, and then we have to do one more coat on the other side, the side that's going to be up, so it's perfect. After what seems like an eternity of sanding, we're doing the back side. Now, the other side, we put a very thick coat on. We still have to sand it. It is not finished, and we have to pour another coat. But we're doing the back side first, so when we get the final coat on the front side, it's not face down on top of the table. So this is the last time it's going to see anything, so it doesn't scratch it when we move things. Anyway, sanded the bejeebers out of it, 3 different grit sandpaper, made sure it's still level. We put a dam around the whole outside so the epoxy doesn't drip down the sides like it did before, because it was a pain in the ass to clean off. And I want, when we do the second layer on the sides, I want to brush it on so we don't have the drips to clean up on this side again. But anyway, we're all ready. All right. May I ask what you are doing?
Warming it up down here.
Warm it? Okay.
I'm getting the bubbles out. The heat. And there's lots of bubbles right now.
So we've been chasing bubbles for a long time, to the point where Kathy is very frustrated. She kind of said some beeping words. Anyway, it's looking great. We're gonna let it go. Tomorrow, even though this is the back side, I'm gonna sand it again and then put a very, very, very thin coat of fresh epoxy on it. Let that sit over the weekend. Then we're gonna flip it. We're sanding the back side because just like painting a car, if you put the next coat of epoxy over the shiny stuff, it will look great, and then eventually it's just gonna delaminate and peel off. Now you remember when I did the whole thing before, when it was bare wood, I rounded the edges. We had tape here. The epoxy went up to the tape, and it actually created a very sharp edge all the way around. So if you're doing the same thing, remember to soften the edge, just like you did last time, before this next coat of epoxy. Now this one, we're not gonna put tape on the edge. We're gonna let it just drip over the top. Then on the other side, we're gonna brush the sides with the stuff that drips over. The other side, the top side, finish side, we'll flip it and we'll put a piece of tape part way down. This is a truck bed, so it's gonna be in the bed, so you really won't see the sides unless it's tipped. So we just have to get that done. And in the end, we might end up just brushing on the sides. It depends on what it looks like. So we're doing an experiment here. The bottom side, this looked beautiful before, and it really didn't need anything more than what it was, but I'm doing something on this side as an experiment for the top side. Instead of putting on another real thick 1/8 inch coat like what we did on the back, the front side it was a 1/4 inch. I want to see if we can get away with like a 1/16, because it was almost perfect. Fill in all the imperfections and see if that will do what we need it to do. Anyway, I'm going to continue to sand, get the whole thing roughed up, get the whole thing flat, Then we're gonna clean it off with a degreaser, and then the next step is to pour the brand new epoxy, let it sit overnight. Hopefully it's beautiful. Flip it over, and we'll be doing the finished side, the top side, tomorrow afternoon, and we will finally be done with this. Okay, we've sanded the entire thing with 80 grit sandpaper, and then a second time with 180 grit sandpaper, and now we are wiping the entire thing off with wax and grease remover. You put it on, and you wipe it off. And then we're going to have to take high pressure hose. There's some air bubbles up in here. We have to get those air bubbles blown out. And then we're going to be ready to seal it.
You have the heat gun?
I don't have a heat gun. You might want to go upstairs and grab that. Okay, we have the final coat down, and for a 4 foot by almost 5.5 feet, 6 feet, 48 ounces is perfect at a 1/16 of an inch thick. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, this thing looks perfect. So the experiment worked. I thought I was gonna have extra left over. We do not. It is like glass. Turn it out amazing. So the bottom on this one is going to be just as good as what we normally do the tops. So, and with this experiment, we'll probably do the rest of them this way, even though you'll never see this side. We are on our final pour. Cross the arms, cross the fingers, cross your toes, cross your legs of this legendary live edge bed. This one has been a challenge. We typically paint with an automotive finish, the top coat on these, in the clear coat. And we wanted to do what they do with live edge beds. They pour it out of epoxy. The challenge has been, we get 2 or 3 little areas that the air bubbles keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming, and we get a little crater. On the back side, no big deal. You don't see it. On this side, it has to be right where we want it to be. This thing's gorgeous. It deserves a great finish. So we're gonna try one more time. The cool thing is this is getting deeper and deeper, so there's a lot of depth in it. But this is, I think, on this side, our 3rd top pour. So on the back side, we have 3 top pours also. So we've done 6 top pours. So we're done. This is gonna be it. If you like what you see, hit the button below, comment, follow us, subscribe, share our videos. Here we go.
This baby is ready to go.
All right, so some building has been happening at the shop. They are busy down here wrapping the live edge bed that is going to be shipped to California. Building a shipping crate. There's so much shit, boy.
Hey everybody, Chris with Legendary Customs. The legendary live edge bed, as you can see, has been crated up, ready to go. It is just a little bit over 320 pounds with the packaging, everything. We have layer after layer after layer of protection so it can go. And I was worried about it being top heavy. This thing isn't going anywhere. So this is working out perfect. This is going to California to Hank, leaving probably Wednesday, a little later than Thursday. Today's Monday, and it'll be on its way. Anyway, watch everything. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, comment below, follow us on our Facebook, our YouTube channel, subscribe, and hit us up on Instagram. This thing is ready to rock and roll. Another one out the door. Lots and lots of hours. Keep watching, more exciting stuff to come.